that kind of, when I look back now, I didn't see it at the time, but when I look back now, I realise now that is what gave me the determination and persistence that really lots of people know me for now. Totally made the own decision. I rang him up. I was like, I've signed us up. I've signed us up. And he was like, whoa. And I think deep down he was like, yes, I reckon that was his secret plan all along. I've never set foot in them. Richard views them. He does all the viewings. And I don't even view them until we've completed. Now that is trust.
Are you sure you got any properties?
Well, I really hope so.
So to round the episode off then, the final question I asked you, brother, what is a pet peeve of that Rich has?
Oh, this could be a long answer.
Before we kick this episode off, I want to let you know about our next show that will be taking place in Manchester on Wednesday, the 4th of September at Manchester City's stadium, the Etihad. Doors to the show will open from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have 2 keynote stages, multiple exhibitors, and lots of opportunity for networking. Details to the show is in the description. Tickets are free. We hope to see you there. Tina, part 2.
Hello.
We've just had your brother on the last episode.
Okay.
Now it's to get your side of the story. He was saying terrible things.
Why does that not surprise me?
So, as I was saying to Rich, both you and Rich have been very supportive throughout my sort of property career, and I'm very appreciative of that. And obviously, I know you both very well. Obviously, you've got the car garage, as we've heard from Rich. But tell us a little bit about Tina as a person, as an individual.
Oh, as a person, okay. Do you want me to go back? How far do you want me to go back?
Yeah, I think sort of where the career started. So to segue it, I guess Rich was saying in his episode that he went into the car garage business, sort of chucked in the deep end with that, realised that actually it's quite difficult to swim in this environment. And then your dad obviously gave him the responsibility, and then you came in after getting your accountancy qualification. Yeah,
I suppose really when I look back, so when I was a child, I was heavily into freestyle dancing.
Okay.
And I used to train.
Like just freestyle dancing?
Freestyle dancing, it's like balletic movements.
Okay.
It's very fast. It's done to modern music.
Okay.
So I used to train that 5 times a week and travel up and down the country doing that.
Wow.
I was world champion 11 times. Yeah, so that kind of, when I look back now, I didn't see it at the time, but when I look back now, I realise now that is what gave me the determination and persistence that really lots of people know me for now. And I realised then, just from doing that, because that took sacrifices. You know, I wasn't the one going out to parties and things like that. I was the one that was training. I lived and breathed it. I mean, I absolutely loved it. I had a massive passion for it, but it still took a lot of sacrifice to get to that level, and consistently at that level year in, year out. And I think I've got lots of transferable skills. Didn't see it at the time. But with that, did the A-levels. I'd got into university to go into sort of sports and business, again, from the sort of dancing side. But to be fair, my dad was like, that's just not a good idea. You know, you need to have a better career option. And it was him who convinced me to become an accountant and do my training. So I did that and then realised this isn't for me. But I continued, finished my qualifications, and then stepped away from that, having no idea what I really wanted to do, was thinking about being a teacher, wasn't really sure. And Dad was like, oh, the accounts lady's left at the garage. He said, will you just do that anyway? Just give yourself a bit of pocket money while you sort out what you're doing. Because I'd said I'd never go and work at the garage. I never wanted to do it. I wanted to be in business, but I wanted to go my own way. So I was like, yeah, that's fine, Dad, I'll do that. And of course, 28 years later, I'm still there. So he obviously, and my dad, I think, knew what he was doing.
There was an angle.
Yeah, absolutely. There was an angle. And I think, Richard needed perhaps some assistance with it. You know, I mean, it was 1996. I was only 20 at the time. He needed his
little sister to come and save the day.
Haven't really looked back since. But I did go there on a temporary basis. It is quite amusing when I think back. But yeah, loved it really from day one. Loved being in business. We'd grew up, our parents were in business, which at that sort of era, they started up in the 60s. That was quite unusual. So Richard and I grew up in that environment. So I just loved it. I loved the diversity. Every day is different. There's different challenges to overcome, different problems. And I loved it. And I did actually quite like working with Rich because we're very different. But I think if you work with anyone in business, whether it's family or not, you're much better working with people that aren't like you. If you've all got the same skill set, you're all going to fight over doing the same bits of the job as such. Whereas Richard and I don't, because we are so different. I'm more sort of a details person. Richard's more of a headlines person. So it kind of sits naturally with where we go with it. So yeah, that's how we kind of ended up. I ended up at the garage working with him, and then we got our first property in 2003. Yeah, didn't really know what we were doing at all.
Yep. Rich said the same thing.
Yeah,
so
but we bought in high demand area, and to be fair, it's been rented. Other than when we've refurbed it, that property has been rented out the whole time. It's gone through 2 recessions. And I think it's a great example of how property is great and how, when you look at it long term, that just shows it, definitely. It's got great capital appreciation since we've had it. So it kind of ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's why property is so great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I think Richard, really, we didn't upscale the property side of the business until 2017 when we decided to get educated. Richard had been pushing me for a while, but I just wasn't kind of ready. And then, you know what it's like, we went to those sort of 2-hour free seminars and Richard couldn't make it right at the last minute. So I went on my own, and that was great because I just went on my own, totally made the own decision. I rang him up. I was like, I've signed us up. I've signed us up. And he was like, whoa. And I think deep down he was like, yes, I reckon that was his secret plan all along because I think he knew I'd got to make that decision myself.
Father,
yeah,
son.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because I can't have him take the credit, can I? Do you know what I mean? That's not happening. So, yeah, and then it's just, we did spend a lot of money on our education, but it worked for us. We learned so much. I mean, it's overwhelming, I think, when you start. There's so many different strategies. And property's so different to the motor trade. Everyone in property that we come across, they're always so helpful. The motor trade, it's dog eat dog. It seriously is. Nobody wants to help you do anything. So going from that industry into property was like, oh, well, they must want something. Oh, no, they don't. They're just happy to help us. And we were like, this is strange. And it's lovely. It's a very welcoming environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying everybody is, but as a whole, so that's kind of where we've kind of upscaled from there. Yeah, and love it, really. Good.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that point on the property industry. It's a very peculiar industry in that sort of sense that everyone is so very open and helpful and everyone's willing to share, and I suppose it's that abundance mindset, isn't it? And I think if you're in property, in a sophisticated way, I think obviously you can be an investor and not really be involved in that side of the industry. So there's kind of 2 sides to the industry. I think there's those that just get their heads down and they're just not bothered about anyone else, and then there's like the networking side, doing the events, that sort of the training side. I think that's the kind of collaborative piece, and I think it's why this podcast exists is because people like yourself are willing to come on and talk about, both you and Rich, talk about your journey, talk about what you've been up to. Nothing to hide, kind of. This is how we've done it. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to have in the industry, because most industries, like the car game, it's closed. You can't see what's going on over here. It's all very much private. And it's we kind of, I went off, had the finance business, it was a little bit like that with the finance side of things. It was closed doors, and there's a bit of a rivalry there with other local businesses. Whereas property, it's like
open arms.
Literally, which is so much better for me. I'm so glad I'm back out of the finance game and back in the property game in this sort of format. It's just it's a breath of fresh air. So the same question I asked to Rich.
Okay.
A lot of people say that, don't go into business with friends and family. It's always a disaster. What do you think allows you and Rich to work together, obviously as brother and sister, in such a format, in such a long, almost 3 decades working together, which is a long time to be working with a sibling?
Absolutely. I don't actually know. No. I think it's just because we're so different. Mm-hmm. I think that's why it works. And I think we don't hold a grudge. That's the other thing. So if we do disagree, we'll have the disagreement, and then 2 minutes later, it's like it never happened. Mm-hmm. But you could argue, you could do that with any business partner. It's just a bit more awkward when it's friends and family, because you literally can't just say goodbye to them and never speak to them again. Mm-hmm. But I think for Richard and I, it's because we're just so different. And that's why I think it works ultimately.
It makes sense, yeah. So what's the skill set that Rich has got or what's the split between the skill set? I'm not sure what Rich's skill set is really, if I'm honest. No. He's more creative than me. He likes all the headlines. He likes finding the deals. Mm-hmm. I'm more your details person. It's one of the reasons I love property so much. It's about people. Mm-hmm. And I just love talking all the time. I reckon I spend 80% of my time on the phone pretty much every day, whether it's talking to solicitors, brokers, accountants, trades, because I tend to do with all the trades and who's coming in and the builders. And I just love it. Mm. That's what I love, people. I could talk to a lamppost. Drives my husband mad as well as Rich. It's like, I can't take her anywhere. It's good for podcast guests as well. It just allows me to sit back and relax a bit.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, and I think another reason I think Richard and I work well together is because he's the calm. Mm-hmm. Richard's my calm, so he always says I'm chaos. Wherever I go, chaos follows. My family life at home, it's quite chaos. The kids were all very noisy. Richard's the calm. Mm-hmm. So I think, again, it's that sort of yin and yang opposites type scenario. Yeah, Richard's the calm of the two of us.
I think that's the important element, isn't it? It's having that offset skill, and it's been similar in a lot of things, in opinion and that sort. But in terms of actual skill set, having that split, I think.
Yeah, and trust. That's the other thing. You'll laugh at this. Don't think anyone knows this. So quite a few of our deals, until we complete, I've never set foot in them. Richard views them. He does all the viewings. And I don't even view them until we've completed. Now, that is trust.
Are you sure you got any properties?
Well, I really hope so.
Can you confirm or deny?
Yeah, well. But yeah, it's trust as well. Oh, that's what you get with family.
Absolutely, yeah. I think and that's what I had with my previous business partners, that trust element, as well as different skill sets. And I think, obviously for you guys, it's probably a lot easier to trust your brother than it is, a random business partner.
Yeah.
So I think the whole piece around don't go into business with friends and family. Yeah, I think maybe you only hear about the horror stories usually because it's often, the local news and everyone's gossiping about it. Yeah. But I think there's some real, obviously you guys are a success story where that
Thank you.
It rings true, and it's refreshing. And obviously you've got to, even to the point you've got to go to networking events and say we're brother and sister, we're not married.
Oh, we have to get that out straight away. I'm telling you, the amount of people that think we're married. I mean, literally everyone does, because obviously Richard's tall. He's over 6 foot. I'm only 5'1", so you wouldn't necessarily think, oh, we're brother and sister. Yeah. So yeah, everyone thinks we're married, and it's obviously when you are brother and sister, that is very distressing.
Yeah.
So literally we do announce it. I think I should get like some sort of a sign, and wear it here that says
you
we
need
are
a T-shirt
brother and sister.
or something,
A
label.
And obviously I'm the boss, obviously.
Wait, Rich did preempt us that would be the case.
Absolutely.
Little sister gets the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is that usually if it's 50-50 and you can't agree on something, it's often Rich
Yeah, I let him think he's in charge, but he's not. He'll come around to my way of thinking. He just doesn't know it.
Super.
Clever.
Super. Love it.
Manipulative, that's what we'll do.
Well, some brothers and sisters out there taking notes, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, most people, to be fair, when they realise we're brother and sister, they're like, oh, I couldn't work with my sibling. No, we get that a lot.
Yeah, Rich said the
but
same thing.
It's all I know. You know, I was only 20 when we started working together. It's all I know. I can't imagine anything else.
Yeah, it's good. Happy days.
Yeah.
From same question again for Rich. What was your favourite deal that you've done together?
Oh, favourite deal. I still think it's the first one.
Okay. So just
first deal.
Run through that again.
So it was 2-bed end of terrace in South Staffordshire, and we bought it 2003. Still got it now. Rents really well. I think we bought it for just shy of 100,000.
Right. Okay.
It's now worth about 175.
Nice.
Yeah, but obviously it's been through 2 recessions, and it's just, you know, over that sort of 20-year period, it's still grown. It's got great capital appreciation. Rents for $725 a month.
Wow.
You know, but it's just your first one, isn't it? I just don't think you ever forget your first one.
Yeah. I can.
Yeah, as your portfolio grows, sometimes they do mingle into one, but I just think your first one, you just never forget.
Yeah. I have to agree with that. I remember.
Yeah.
I could tell you obviously what my first deal is, but I couldn't tell you what my 5th deal was.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. They just sort of.
I'd have to sit and be like, okay.
Oh yeah, we did that one. We did that one.
Yeah, exactly.
We did that one.
Yeah. I get that. No, that's good. It's nice to sort of think that way, I guess. And I think it's always the first deal that kind of gets you on that ladder and gets you going, because obviously, you know, it's taking the action and going from the car garage into property. What do you think the skills were that transferred over from your side?
From my side, people skills, communication. When we had the garage and we had the petrol station side, I would deal with more that side. So I would deal with all the girls and all the staff. And if you speak to any business owner, they'll tell you that staff is difficult. Dealing with the staff can be hard. So you sometimes you feel like you're a part-time counsellor. You take everything on. So yeah, I think that's the biggest transferable skill, definitely, for me.
I think in property you need people skills.
You do.
For sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, I love it though. I mean, I love talking to vendors, direct to vendors. We've bought a lot of our properties direct to vendor. We've got one that should be completing in the next 2 weeks, and we've been talking to that vendor for 3 years. And it's only just completing now. You know, that's their choice. You know, he's had difficult times. He had a breakdown in the middle of it and he'd disappear. But, you know, I just kept in touch with him. You know, at times I'd say, look, if you don't want us to buy the house anymore, perfectly fine. Please just let me know. And he'd go, no, it's fine. But I just love that, and talking to them, building relationships.
I think that's a vital, part. One of my sort of recent deals I'd been working on for, I suppose, 3 or 4 years with the same landlord. You know, sort of kept in touch and, you know, wished him Merry Christmas on Christmas, you know, Happy New Year and Happy New Year, and just sort of kept that relationship going. In the early days, I was helping him convert a house to a HMO. I didn't charge him anything. And he sort of, the discussion was, you know, eventually I'll start to sell you my portfolio. And that's started to come to light now. But I mean, that's, and to be honest with you, even to the point where, you know, I've met one of his sons and, you know, been around his house for a cup of tea and stuff. And I think, although people will probably argue, well, you know, you're doing that for a financial incentive, but I think for me, there's still meaning behind the relationship.
And also, as well, there was nothing to say he was going to sell you the portfolio.
Of course, yeah.
You know, you're not. It's not all for financial, is it? It's just the building relationships. I think if you're a people's person, you just love doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's hearing other people's stories, you know, having those types of conversation. You know, who the landlord I'd probably never meet in 1,000 years had it not been the the common denominator of he had a property and I'm looking to buy a property. Yeah. And outside of that, you know, we get on, you know, as far as, you know, a 27 and a 70-year-old would get on, sort of thing. So, and he often phones me and goes, "Oh, I've got this scenario in property. What should I do?" And I say, "Do this X, Y, Z." "Oh, I can always trust on you." And puts the phone down, and so it's, I think, and obviously over time that's gonna, come to light that he might start offloading a few more properties to me, and he's happy to do that. He doesn't have to deal with estate agents. He just deals with me, and we're all happy.
Vendor stories are great, aren't they? There's every property's always got a history behind it, and you can only get that from the vendor. And they're just really interesting to listen to. Richard's dealing with a vendor, another one. I'd say that's got to be coming on for 3 years as well. He's got 3 properties, and he's really eccentric. He's hilarious, and I think Richard's his part-time counsellor. He'll text me, "Just had another 30 minutes on the phone." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Is he okay?" "Yeah, he's fine." It is. It's a really good part of it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Let me just pause this episode for a moment to quickly introduce you to our episode sponsor, the Property Finance Collective. Transforming visions into reality requires not just a great idea, but the right financial support and the best possible team around you. Specialising in development finance, bridging finance, and commercial mortgages, the Property Finance Collective are there to help you navigate complex markets to secure the funding you need, as well as being part of your team that you can rely on. With a flair for creative deal structuring, they tailor solutions that fit precisely with your project's demands, ensuring speed, efficiency, and flexibility. They want to help you make the impossible possible. Now let's get back to the episode. So going from obviously your best deal to what, because I know obviously you guys moved from the car garage into property. You bought your first property in 2003, but then obviously you started to take it seriously, as you said, after the training. So I guess what would your one bit of advice be to someone that's potentially got a successful business or a really successful career and wants to transition away, or not transition, because obviously you guys haven't transitioned away, so to speak, but you've certainly diversified into property as well. What bit of advice would you give to someone that's potentially looking to have, I suppose, a part-time business? Well, it's probably not part-time in most parts, but what advice would you give someone to who's looking to sort of get into property as well as obviously doing the career and business at the same time?
I think now in property, there's so many free resources to start with that you can get online. Obviously we paid a lot of money for our education, but you don't necessarily need to do that. You can get lots of free resources, go to network events. And I think it's about surrounding yourself with the right people. And I think the only other thing I'd advise is once you've got all the tools in place, you can learn all about the strategies, but what people seem to struggle with is the sort of accountability. So it's the taking action and the continuing to take action, because property, it isn't easy. It is a roller coaster. And there are down days, there can be down weeks, you can get nil valuations. There's so many things that are little bumps in the road. And I think especially if you're doing it on your own, I think it's hard to get through all of that if you've not got someone else to soundboard off and to keep you taking that action. So to me, I think you would perhaps get a coach or a mentor or an accountability buddy. That to me is what will push that person from starting it to continuing it. No, for me, I think.
I have to agree. I think it's important to have, because I think you can convince yourself of your own, for a better phrase, bullshit sometimes, If you don't feel like working out one day, you'll make every excuse under the sun to not work out, I worked out yesterday, or I'm a bit tired today. You'll come up with, and you believe your own crap. Whereas having a coach or a mentor, particularly in the early days when it is difficult and you're still trying to gain that momentum, I think having someone in your corner that can help push you along in that sort of, in the right direction, and sort of, oh, I can't do that. Well, why can't you do that?
Yeah.
Oh, well, X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but what?
You put up blocks.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what people do. They put up the blocks, and it needs somebody there to break them down with you so that you can
Absolutely.
keep moving forwards, I think.
Rich really plugged the mentoring side of things. He went on for about 10 minutes about it. So we won't go into that because the listeners are just, no, I'm joking. He was very modest about it. And I was saying that you guys are probably, if I was in the early days, I'd certainly be on to you two, because you're doing the do. You're not, you're
doing the do.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people out there that are doing training. They might be doing one deal a year and, proclaiming that they've been doing it for decades and probably only been doing it a couple of years. But you guys have genuinely been doing it in a very sophisticated way. Obviously, since 2017, you bought your first property in 2003. But you guys are out there. You're running a business, which I think the skill set that you take from business into property are invaluable.
Yeah.
And I think having that broad view on business helps in property. And I think, if I was in the early stages of property, I think even being the age I am, I'd still be onto you guys to help me along.
That's very kind of you to say so, Scott. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, I only say that to good people. So
I'll take it.
Otherwise I don't get plugged on this podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, you can get lots of free resources though now with property as well. You can.
Yeah. Like this podcast.
Yeah,
I've had
absolutely.
some brilliant guests on, really good insights in so many different fields, from, service side to investing. And obviously the list is continuing to grow with new guests.
Going to the property developer show.
Exactly, yeah. Meeting exhibitors, hearing from the speakers there, that's why I started the shows, to provide that resource so service providers can meet, obviously, SME developers and property investors, but also to add value in a free way for people to attend. So, the
speakers you had were brilliant.
Yeah, well, I'm very fortunate. I'm very grateful for the speakers that we have there. We've got some real high caliber people that are, again, doing the do. And I make sure of that. Make sure that people aren't just talking and, taking pictures of the cars and, all the crap you see on TikTok and Instagram. They're the people there are genuine, doing stuff.
I've made some amazing friendships through property. Lifelong friends. So there's a group of us. So when lockdown happened, I saw this thing. You could go on Zoom at 7 a.m. and you do a workout on Zoom all together. So I kind of signed up and did it. And there was just 3 of us at the time that started it, and it's grown. So there's 10 of us now that all do it. And we are lifelong friends now. We're a group. We call ourselves the Rapsy Tapsy. I won't go into why. It's a long story. But that's what we call ourselves. But we're literally, so one lady lives right up top end of Scotland, and then 2 of them live in the Isle of Wight. So we are literally the length and breadth of the country. And then we now meet about 3 times a year. We hire a house, and we just have such great fun. There's quite a diverse background of people you can imagine within the 10. And we just all get on so well, which I think for a group of 10 females is quite rare in itself. But we've all got property in common. There's quite a diverse age range as well. I'm like the mummy of the group. I'm the oldest. But it's absolutely wonderful. I would never have dreamt in a million years that, I would get that from going into property, and I'll be forever grateful to all the girls.
Absolutely.
We kind of, about 7:30 now, if we can, we log on in the morning. We don't sort of do the workouts anymore, but we just log on and have a chat, and it's great because you can discuss anything to do with business, because they're all in property pretty much full time now, all of them. So we've all got the same problems, whether it's nil valuations or lenders asking for yet another document that takes 2 weeks to look at. It's the same problems. And again, it's great because if you're a bit down or whatever, things aren't going your way, you just hop on and you think, we're all going through it.
Yeah. It's having that support network. And I think it alludes to that point that we were talking about early on with property being so open about, that collaboration piece. And I think having that, obviously, Rich probably gives you a little bit of support where you need it from an actual business day to day. But I think are we completely mental in terms of what's going on in the business, or is this stuff happening to everyone? I think having that, whether it's through a mentor, whether it's through obviously friendships, whatever it might be, it's having, as they say, without using too much of a cliche, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Absolutely.
And I think that rings true, particularly in property. You know, if your friends are doing big, massive stuff, you're often like, oh, maybe I should do a bit more. Or it helps you, I suppose, momentum and also stay sane at the same time.
Yeah, that's the downside to social media, though, isn't it? Comparing yourself to others.
Absolutely.
Fatal mistake, that is.
Absolutely, yeah. So to round the episode off then, the final question I asked to your brother, what is a pet peeve of that Rich has?
Oh, this could be a long answer. No. Oh, crikey, pet peeve.
Where do we start?
Pet peeve, well, where do we start? I tell you what he does do. He turns off all the plug sockets at work. Literally, I'll go to turn the kettle on and then I'll go back.
Okay. So interestingly, his pet peeve about you was the fact that you don't make brews. So you're going to say now that it's because the kettle's off.
Yes, the kettle's off. No, what I do, I'll turn the kettle on, but then I just forget to go back and make the drink. So, and I do make a drink. I make one at Christmas. So, you know.
He did mention that, to be fair.
Yeah. It's not because I'm lazy. It's just I turn the kettle on and then I just forget. I'm so busy, you see, on the phone. I just forget. Yeah, I don't do that.
So maybe if Rich didn't switch all the switches off,
maybe
the kettle would boil and you would be able to make a cup of tea or coffee.
But the reality is I probably wouldn't.
We'll leave it at that then. Oh, super. And so just the one then, because he had a few.
Oh, did he? Well, let me have a think. Oh, like I said, he's the calm noises. Like if I do really loud noises, we've got like this box with loads of little paint sticks in. So if I really want to annoy him, I bring it into the office and start rattling them all, and he's like.
That was also another thing that he said, that you have your phone on loud all the time.
Oh yeah, I'm the noisy one. You see, chaos, noise. Yeah, I think. And he's the quiet one. So, yeah. It's a brother-sister thing, though, isn't it? Like, literally, if I can do something that I know will annoy him on purpose, I'm going to do it because I'm his little sister, and that's what little sisters do, isn't it?
Course, yeah.
So we do have a lot of laughter in our sort of business environment, office environment. And I think that's because how we were as kids, that's what we did then. I mean, if I could get Richard in trouble with mum and dad, yes, that was such a win for the day. And I still do it now.
Yeah.
I still do it now at work.
It's fantastic.
If I can annoy him, great,
Brilliant.
I've had a good day.
Yeah. Well, you've spent most of the afternoon trying to embarrass him here, so it's great. It's great. No, good stuff. I mean, it's amazing to see you've got such a great relationship, and it shines through you more than Rich. But Rich was only saying, no, I'm joking. It's beautiful to see, and it's nice that you can work closely with family in business, and here's a great example of that.
Thank you.
Super.
Thank you for having me.
No, absolute pleasure. And it's been good to get both sides of the story, and hopefully some people can take some value from it as well.
Yes, hopefully.
Super. Thank you very much. So that concludes both part 1 and part 2. You can decide on whether you'd be able to go into business with one of your family members or close friends and decide whether there is a way forwards with that approach. I definitely think there is. I'd love to work very closely with my brother in the future, and I think Tina and Rich are a great example of where that works. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.